This astaxanthin supplement, I hear it's 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C, 100 times stronger than vitamin E, and 800 times stronger than CoQ10?
Yes, astaxanthin supports joint health, memory health, even anti-aging and immune health. This Hawaii brand delivers 3 times more nature-identical astaxanthin to your body and is a better buy than the competition. It's called Xanthicin. Safely manage your inflammatory health with Xanthicin. It's pure and highly absorbed, providing greater benefits. Visit getxantho.com and these retailers.
How's it going, everybody? Another edition of Hawaii Football Now presented by Xanthicin. Also a big shout out to our other sponsor, Spectrum Mobile. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes back with you as we race toward the Hawaii Bowl. We race toward the holidays. It is already the middle of December. We record this on Tuesday, the 14th. Early signing day is tomorrow. We've got a couple of names to keep our eye on. We also know a couple of destinations of some high-profile transfers leaving the program. And so the ongoing December saga for the Rainbow Warriors sort of continues, right? It at least has quieted down a little bit, and I think the guys who have remained in the building have more or less kind of turned the page and are now focusing on the Hawaii Bowl. Still some smatterings of some of the discontent and whatnot, and I think that's pretty natural with the magnitude of the revelations that have been reported. We do know where Chevan Cordeiro is off to. We do know where running back Dede Hunter is off to, and we will get to that in just a little bit. But Hunter, before we get started here, as we kind of hit the opening drive, I asked you last week what sort of the vibe has been in conversations you've had. And so I think we'll kind of start the same way. Like it is, there was some alumni pride with like Tumua having sold out shows at the Blaisdell last weekend.
Shout out to my boy.
Right. And so like there are positive things associated with the football program. And then, the big news Saturday where Chevan Cordeiro was off to and things like that. And we'll get into that in a little more detail. But has the vibe changed at all here a week later?
You're right. There have been, maybe a couple of bright spots. Want to shout out my boy Drew Brown up at the Winnipeg Bombers up in the CFL. They just won the Grey Cup, which for those of you listening is the Canadian equivalent to the Super Bowl, which is pretty cool.
It's also like 100 years older than the Super Bowl.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, excuse me, 50 years older. That was Grey Cup 108. And we're like not even on 58 yet.
Yeah, totally. No, it's cool. And it's kind of like the Stanley Cup where they don't make a new one every year. It's the Grey Cup. It's kind of cool. So yeah, shout out to my boy. And then obviously Tamua had 3 sold out shows at the Blaisdell concert hall. He killed it. So proud of him. Little known fact, Jordan, he and I took a stand-up comedy class together in college, and that was his first time ever doing stand-up.
Really? So we've got you to thank for this.
What was that?
We've got you to thank for his blossoming.
That's exactly right. I take full credit. This Holly boy wrote all of the jokes for all that local content. Okay. Yeah.
You're the reason we're bringing back local comedy. I love that. Did you go to one of the shows?
I went to 2 of them. I went to 2 out of the 3.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wish I could have gone. I was working, but that's cool, man. I'm a big fan, and I hope he continues to do well.
Oh, I think you're going to get plenty of opportunity. They're kind of starving for a new face for local comedy out here. And I mean, to have a former UH football player, an alum, do it well, it kind of fits. I think he's gonna have a career with this thing. I'm really happy for him. Back to football.
Yeah, we talk enough football, right?
Man, this
is fun stuff. But no, go ahead.
To tell you the truth, man, at least my perception, talking with some of the guys on the team, the feeling for the program and the team right now is kind of just an afterthought. It's like, all right, let's get through the holiday season. I guess we have a bowl game. I guess we'll play in it. It's awfully hard to generate any sort of positive team morale when anything is going on with your program, let alone a full-on wildfire in terms of news and media and scandal and social media, that has been the last couple of weeks for our program. I know that guys are getting hit up by news people on the mainland. I know that athletic director Dave Matlin held a meeting for players only this past week to kind of hear their side of the story. And they are, from what I can tell, starting to try to put some pieces together to see if there's any validity behind some of these accusations of player abuse from the head coach, abuse of other coaches. All of this stuff is kind of being investigated, like you and I were kind of calling for last week. So it's definitely still in progress. Nothing has been decided, but that's kind of the state of the program amidst some more guys leaving, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, right? And I think we've mentioned this on the podcast. Just I think the bowl game will be telling, right? And I'm willing to go into that with an open mind and see, what kind of performance this team puts on, what kind of team morale comes out with obviously a team being pretty shorthanded, and the big reason for that is, right, your starting backfield is gone, and as we mentioned there, we know the destinations now with Chevan Cordeiro announcing on Saturday via social media that he is on his way to San Jose State. That's right, in division rival, not just in conference rival, but in division rival San Jose State, where in his 2 years remaining of eligibility, like if he is the starter, he will be starting 2 games against the University of Hawaii and Day Hunter, the prize running back, a Todd Graham recruit out of high school. He's on his way to Liberty. Hugh Freeze, that program is very much on the rise. They're 7-5 this year after a pretty banner season last year.
Yeah, they were ranked, right?
Yeah, they were. Malik Willis is projected to be a first-round pick at quarterback. They're playing in, forgive me, I forget what bowl game it is, but It's in Mobile, Alabama. And they will be playing in a bowl game. I think it's against
It's
Eastern.
Not the Potato Bowl.
It's not. No, they're not going to Idaho. They're going down to Mobile. Beautiful spot, I've heard. But yeah, so Day-Day's off to Liberty. Just kind of your general thoughts on the move. And I guess we could start with Day-Day because I think Chevan's, just based on position and the fact that he's a Hawaii high school guy, is probably the bigger story. But Day-Day Hunter here, and you can argue they're an independent, they're quote unquote mid-major, but the money they're pumping into that program, Hugh Freeze at the helm with his past record, both good and bad. It's a high-profile program, and they play a pretty good schedule year in and year out. But what do you make of Day-Day heading east out to the East Coast?
Yeah, a couple things coming to mind immediately. I know Coach Abe Elimimian posted on Twitter that the combination this year of Parsons and Hunter were actually ranked in the top 50 in the whole program for running back duos, which pretty great accolade right there, especially with Calvin Turner being not mentioned in that as well. But I mean, just having 2 out of the 3 having national accolades is pretty impressive. Jordan, do you know off the top of your head where Day-Day Hunter is from?
Yeah, Arizona, right? I believe.
Okay, that's right. I was just I'm just trying to like put into perspective for our listeners. These moves you can never really tell unless you're talking to the guy. Anywhere in the mainland is going to be a little bit more attainable for their family, friends, relatives to come and see them. So that move already from people that don't have Hawaii ties is just understandable. Set aside drama with the team. Like, you just have to understand you've put in all this work, all this effort. You want to be closer to home, just to be around family, friends, enjoy the college experience while you still have time on your clock. So I think there's a little bit of that. Potentially, I don't know what they told him at Liberty, but maybe him being the sole back over there for those guys could offer him maybe marginally more carries compared to here if he was to split time with Parsons. So those are just a couple thoughts off the top of my head. The timing of him leaving felt like there was already communication going on with maybe him and a guy like Chevan, like, hey man, I'm leaving. Just so you know, I'm probably bouncing too. Do you know what I mean with the timing of the announcements? It almost seemed like they had been feeling this way for a minute without even having offers on the table. So that's also a thought right there. In my mind, Liberty is a step down from UH. But then throw in there everything that these guys have had to go through with COVID too, playing to a portion of the fans that they were recruited for, to come in and play in front of Aloha Stadium. All these guys were sold something that isn't a part of their day-to-day football lives now. So that has to be considered with these moves. So that's kind of what I feel about the Dede Hunter move. Shevin, staying in division where we play San Jose every year, literally every year. Either we're going there or they're coming here. San Jose is a program on the rise as well. Last couple of years, they've really put in some infrastructure and tightening of the screws over there. I've been really impressed with what they've been doing. Jordan, it feels like he wants some blood. It just feels that way, man.
Yeah, it definitely kind of raises your eyebrows, right? Because Shevin is such a quiet guy, right? And he is such a humble, head down, work hard, and ball out kind of guy. And circling back to Dede, I think maybe part of the reason for the hesitancy, he is a Chandler High School graduate out of Arizona, but he did play most of his high school career in Denver, Colorado. So he signed out of Arizona, but spent some time elsewhere.
Thank you.
And now he's off to Virginia for Liberty. And so for Shevin, right, it's pretty eye-opening. And look, this, again, it is a brand new era. Like, it really is the Wild West when it comes to transfers. Not that long ago, if you transferred in conference, you had to sit out like 2 years. That was usually the conference rule, right? You think of the Baker Mayfield transfer when he went from Texas Tech to Oklahoma, and the only reason he was able to play right away is because he was technically a walk-on at Texas Tech. But in situations like that, right? So you never saw guys transfer in conference. That was rare because you had to sit out via the transfer year. And then usually you had to sit on an extra year because you were transferring within conference. And things are much different now. Not only do you have to not sit out if you transfer at all, intra-conference, who cares, right? It's a free-for-all. You enter the transfer portal, everybody can call you up, even a coach who coaches against you every single year, right? There's nothing really that is off limits once you enter that transfer portal. And so, like, not only is it a conference rival, right? I think the way you look at things now, and I know San Jose State's track record isn't quite what Hawaii's has been in the past.
Yeah.
But like, dude, they won the conference last year.
Yeah.
And they've won it more recently than they've won a conference championship more recently than Hawaii. They are a program kind of, I would say, upper middle class of the Mountain West Conference. Like, they're not Boise.
Recently,
right? And we're just talking about the last handful of years. Like, that's all.
Yeah.
And really since Brent Brennan got there.
Yes, because they were bottom drawer for a long time.
Bottom, right? And so this is a signaling of that, because if you just look at over the course of time, yeah, absolutely a step down, right, for the University of Hawaii. But you got a coach in Brent Brennan, who guys seem to really like playing for, who has ties to the University of Hawaii from his early coaching days, and obviously his relationship to Colt Brennan, right, the cousins, and a guy who has really built that program up and has shown an ability to build that program to a place where it is very viable. Like, a lot of the conversations around Hawaii football, the negative conversations, have been had at San Jose State, right? Do they even need football? Should it be dropped? Is the program worth it? Is it viable? Does anybody care in San Jose, right? And now he's got that thing where, like, the stadium's kind of nice. They've upgraded a little bit. They've gotten the fans in there. But at the end of the day, like, that is as direct a competitor in the pecking order to Hawaii as you can find. Like, it is as direct.
The only worst moves in my mind are either BYU or Fresno.
Two. And look, neither of those teams, we play for a trophy. Like, we play for a trophy. Hawaii does against San Jose State, right? That's a trophy game. That's like the Dick Tomey Legacy Trophy, and the legendary Dick Tomey, right? And he is a bridge between the programs, as is Brent Brennan. But like, the trophy game, like, did the trophy before on the Hawaii side. So And so
Uh,
it's really interesting to me, Hunter, because I think like maybe I'm young enough, maybe I'm of the non old school enough or something, where it's like I would have loved for him to stay. Like I think he gives Hawaii in its current iteration the best chance to succeed, and you and I both want to see the University of Hawaii football program to succeed. But I really like the way coaches can bail now. Like we've seen it at every level.
yeah,
We've seen it, from the University of Hawaii. Like coaches can bail for big money and all those kinds of things. And so, like, you gotta allow players to do it. I don't love it. I don't think it's great for college football. We just talked about how much of a Wild West kind of situation it is, but like I really don't begrudge Chevin Cordero for going and going to a conference rival. If that's what he thinks is going to put him in the best position, whether it's his aspirations to play professionally, whether it's just from a fit standpoint, from a football fit standpoint, whether it's just going to be a happier situation for him. Like at the end of the day, like I really can't hold it against him. But the thing that has surprised me, Hunter, and maybe this is just me being naive, and I will preface it with this is me reading comments on articles. This is me reading social media. So there is a mix of whether people have attached their names to comments or it is just anonymous. So there's a whole
sure,
smattering of things.
of course.
But there are more people than I thought. And again, this is a very unscientific, just sort of observation based off of the internet, which is a terrible place to go digging for content.
And
There are
also
more
great
people.
at the
There are
same
more
time.
people than I expected to who are vocally unhappy, are vocally really expressing their negative feelings toward the move, more than I thought. And again, that's probably me being naive and me not acknowledging the reality of the situation. But there are quite a few more people than I would have expected who have voiced their something along the lines of, yeah, good, right? You don't want to play here, that's fine. We don't need you, right? Or hey, if he doesn't want to stick it out here, then good riddance, and things of that nature. I'm like, wow, that's a little more than I expected. And look, there are also I will say there are also plenty of people who have expressed genuine, I think, well wishes towards Chevin Cordero, appreciative of his 4 years here, what he has done for the program, wishing him well going forward, kind of the friendly rivalry aspect, like, hey, yeah, we'll see you down the road kind of thing. There is still a lot of that, don't get me wrong, but there is more than I thought of, man, that looked at this pretty negatively. I gotta admit, a little surprised.
Yeah, and I don't think that's naive at all, Jordan. One of the things I can even remember in my own experience, Rolo called me in on the phone with Drew Brown whenever Drew was considering transferring, and asked him personally, like, hey, like, this is breaking my heart that you're going to leave, but please, please do not go somewhere in conference. You can go anywhere. Do not go in conference, please, out of courtesy to me, to the program, to the state. Don't do it. And I'm gonna like change it around for our listeners out there, because we've had some big name quarterbacks in the transfer portal this year. Take Oklahoma's Spencer Rattler. Okay, whenever he just went in the transfer portal, he just signed earlier today. We're recording this on Tuesday with South Carolina. South Carolina's in the SEC. Oklahoma at the time was in the Big 12. I guess next year they might be in the SEC. Who knows with all of that nonsense. Same thing with Dylan Gabriel, going from UCF over to Ole Miss, jumping up into the SEC. These are different conferences. It would literally be the equivalent of Rattler maybe not going to Oklahoma State, but going and playing for Texas. That, like, from a fan base perspective, from like a loyalty, like, no, like, that's not cool to do that from just a football and like a loyalty to your team that you're living and dying for. Yeah, it rubs me a little the wrong way. Now, granted, you're a local boy, you grew up here, didn't maybe get to see a whole lot, and you've got a talent like football to take you other places. Go somewhere else. Going somewhere in this proximity to us has much bigger implications than just a local kid going and playing somewhere else. This has big implications, I believe, recruiting. It tells kids that because Jordan, I even heard that he was talking to an SEC and an ACC school, and I don't know if there was ever an offer, but elected not to go definitely a step up, but to go a step across and then have some daggers pointed the other way. That's just my feeling about it, man.
Yeah, I think, it's for a guy like you, right, who has played for this program. Like, there is still a lot of that pride. And as you kind of mentioned earlier, right, when we started the episode, it and I don't know Shevin to be vindictive or look for retribution or something like that. Like, I don't know, it might have just been, hey, he really likes Brent Brennan. It's the spot where he knows he's going to start, and it just happened to be a division rival or something like that. But it does at least kind of, if you like the drama, and we've kind of likened the last few weeks of the University of Hawaii season to sort of this saga, this soap opera, this Korean drama, like whatever you want to call it. This makes it more juicy, right? This makes it more juicy because even if that's not Shevin's intention, if Cordero, you can definitely write that storyline, right? Where it's like, dude, Cordero, he wants to stick it to the program, right? He wants a little bit of, hey, I'm going someplace where I can let you know what you're missing out on, kind of deal. Again, I don't know if that's the reality, but if you like the drama, that storyline kind of writes itself with the move to a division rival. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. San Jose State was here this year, so they'll be on the road next year, and then maybe Shevin's final year, maybe he's playing at Ching.
Wow.
In the blue and gold against the University of Hawaii. That's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird.
I know our diehard fans, they're gonna let them hear it, man. That's big.
And that's the thing, right? It's I feel like, and again, just kind of based off of observations via social media, talking to people, like there seems to be a contingent of diehard fans who feel that way, and then there's kind of a contingent of diehard fans who are very unhappy with the current leadership of the program, that are kind of on the other end of the spectrum. So yeah, it is either way. No matter which way you slice it, it's not a positive for the program. Like, it's not. Like, whatever level of cynicism you want to look at Cordero's decision, it's just not good. Like, if you're losing your starting quarterback, the kid who grew up in your backyard, played in the same venue as the University of Hawaii for all of his home games, right, when Aloha Stadium was the home venue for St. Louis and the Rainbows, that it's just not a positive. Like, there's no way it's a positive. Like, I don't know how you spin that. Like, hey, the next guy is going to be even better. Like, okay, maybe, but kind of like when Drew Brown left. Nothing against Drew Brown, but Cole McDonald, Shevin Cordero kind of took it and ran with it. Like, maybe that plays out. But the way it sits right now, there's no real positive way, I think, to spin that. So yeah, we'll see. And we'll talk a bit about the future here when we get into the second half of the pod. Hunter, as we close out the conversation on a couple of these high profile guys leaving and knowing their destination, you have any final thoughts before we hit the halftime here?
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about the issue as a whole. Similar, people that live here in Hawaii take an issue like homelessness. You can't solve an issue like that with a Band-Aid or just one thing's going to change this whole situation. There's so many outside circumstances that cause the problem that we're seeing in front of us. And I think that is very apparent with the football program here as well. When you look at everything these players have had to put up with the last 2 years, just from a COVID standpoint, I mean, I'm a pretty resilient guy with a very persistent heart. I'd probably be wondering if I don't know if I want to do this any longer. Day in, day out, not getting representation from the state. I believe our fan base is strong, but they can't be there. I see friends of mine that are able to get better opportunities, maybe from lower tier programs, and I can play. I'm kind of at a loss here. So we can blame, Coach Graham this, Bo Graham that. There's a lot going on here than just the one situation. And Jordan, I'd love to end the halftime with this question. If there is another program in college football with more heat around the program in general, I'd like to know, because it feels, again, it's bigger for us because we're here and we cover the team, but it feels like we are the program in the country that has the most holes in the boat that we need to fix.
Great question. And I think that is a great sort of summation of the issue, right? I really do. I think that's well said, Hunter, because you can kind of point your fingers at the current leadership as to why guys like Chevin leave, but it is a much bigger situation than that, right? It's look, I can play in a bigger stadium, I can play in front of actual fans, like, all these kind of things. All of it matters, absolutely. And I don't know the answer to your question, but Colorado State was kind of in dire straits. They seem to have found their guy after getting rid of Steve Adazio and bringing in Jay Norvell. But that's the only one that comes to mind, because there've been a lot of coaching changes here over the course. Like Florida's moved on; they found their guy.
Florida State a couple years ago.
State. Yeah, Sark's kind of in hot water at Texas, just 1 year in, but that's a conversation for another day, no doubt. All right, we'll hit the halftime here, and we got to remind you that only one brand delivers 3 times more astaxanthin than the competition, and that is Xanthicin. What is What is astaxanthin? Well, it helps with joint and muscle function, helps with cholesterol, cognitive health. Astaxanthin is even recommended by doctors and pharmacists for its anti-aging qualities. I got to get on that. Available at getxantho.com, Newtown Square Pharmacy, Down to Earth in Kaka'ako, and Pharmacare Hawaii as well. Again, check out getxantho.com to learn more. That's GetZantho.com.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
At second halftime, Jordan Hunter back with you. A week and a half out from the bowl game. It's, we talked about this in the open, Hunter, but at least it starts to feel like a little normal routine. You got like a month break, and then the first few weeks, it's like, man, when is this ever going to end, right? You got all the drama going on. And then at least now it's just kind of a bye week, right? And then you get into game week next week. What was your experience with that kind of situation, right? You get it kind of at the start of the season when you get into camp, you got the long lead into the first game of the season, and you get it at the back end of the season if you do end up finding yourself in a bowl game. And I know you've been to one. I think you're second to last year, right, at the University of Hawaii. What are those weeks look like? What is, the penultimate week sort of feel like as you gear up and really get into things with the bowl game basically being, as we record this, 10 days on the horizon?
Yeah, it's funny. The year that we went in 2016, it's actually eerily similar to some of the stuff that the team is going through right now. We made it into the bowl game with a losing record off of a technicality, very similar to these guys. And I remember in one of the team meetings, Rolo asking everybody, do you guys want to play in a bowl game? Just because the college football season is long. For any athlete, but a student athlete as well, when you're trying to balance that with grades, it wears on you day in, day out. Just about everybody is nursing some kind of injury. And then to tack on literally an additional month to your season. Granted, the last month is a little more chill. Usually get about a week and change off around Thanksgiving, which these guys did as well. And then you slowly but surely start to build against your opponent, because that'll be around the time when you find out who you're going to play. Coaches usually take off to go either be with their families or recruit during that time. And so you're kind of dealing with all of that. But yeah, when the bowl game comes, it's kind of like Christmas comes early for you. All of a sudden, your program that didn't have enough t-shirts for you in camp now is swimming with t-shirts and shoes and sandals and backpacks to choose from. And then this guy comes in from the bowl committee who says you get to choose from each of these tiers a present, and you're just like, what? This is awesome. It's really pretty cool. And for me, a scout team walk-on, getting to experience that, pretty special. You get to kind of be a kid again, and for all of the stuff that you kind of had to persist through to live large for really maybe about 5-6 days come bowl week, where they're taking you on that chartered bus everywhere you go, police escort. You kind of get to feel like a rock star for a little while. I remember they took us to Wet and Wild. We played Middle Tennessee that year. Yeah, exactly. Rode the Shaka a few times. When Middle Tennessee came in, they always have the two teams do a shared luau down in Waikiki, which is kind of cool because you're interacting with the other team when you don't really get that experience in the season. You only ever see the other team at the stadium. So you can kind of chop it up with the guys a little bit. I know I talked with many of them after the game because everyone, I mean, from coaches to players to the other team to support staff, everyone gets on that flight to their prospective destination immediately after the game on Christmas Eve. And so you could have been at war with the guy and sitting next to them on the plane heading home for Christmas after the game. So it's definitely a very unique situation to play in the Hawaii Bowl.
Yeah, and the timing of it, as you mentioned. What was the coolest piece of swag you got? What was your favorite?
I think for me, the sweatsuit from the Hawaii Bowl, just like having that on there, like the backpack, like, because it's one of one essentially. It's only from that year. But then we won the bowl game, and if you win, you get a bowl ring. For players, having a ring is pretty stinking cool. I still have it here on my shelf. For me, who didn't play in high school, college football happened completely out of nowhere. That was a really cool, unexpected surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I think, a symbol of the accomplishment and the work, no doubt about it. So this Hawaii team, as they prepare, and we'll get into Memphis, the opponent, a lot more next week, as we get into game week for the first time in about a month. Of course, the big topic of conversation this week, albeit outside of the transfer news, is the other way, right? Whether it's transfers coming in, high school guys signing tomorrow, as again, we record this on Tuesday, the 14th, is early signing day. Got a keen eye out, right? Like, what is it going to look like? It sounds like, there are a fair amount of the guys who have verbally committed who may wait until February, kind of the traditional signing day in the first week of February. But you did have some kind of big announcements, I guess you could say, come down in the last handful of days, especially with the cloud hanging over the program, kind of the negativity swirling around, to see some guys offer their verbal commitments to the University of Hawaii. That's got to be pretty positive, right? That's showing obviously guys who believe in the destination, in the program. You had Cal transfer, Chigozie Anusiem, the corner, who played quite a bit for the Bears. He's a grad transfer with 2 years remaining, played in 7 games this year before entering the portal. I think early November, if I'm not mistaken. He started 3. He's a guy from Southern California. And again, has a fair amount of experience playing in the Pac-12. And then you got Iowa State defensive back Verdell Edwards II. He's just a redshirt freshman. He's from Plano, Texas. So another one of the guys, kind of the Texas connection to this coaching staff. From what I could tell, he didn't really play all that much at Iowa State, right? There, we saw Chima Azuma, the other Iowa State transfer. So that's at least a little bit of a pipeline. And then you also had the junior college defensive back, Cameron Bell, who spent 2 years at the College of the Canyons in California. He's originally from Florida, played quite a bit in JUCO, and he is on his way. And so those are the big 3 that have come down in the last week or so, Hunter. We can get into some guys who have offered their verbal commitment a bit earlier, at least per 24/7 Sports. But what'd you make of the news of these 3 guys? All transfers, 2 Power 5 transfers, 1 JUCO guy, all defensive backs as well. And we have seen guys like Cameron Lockridge and Corey Bethley and some of those guys on the back end of the defense really thrive in this attacking defensive system. But the fact that they're coming in at, with kind of everything going on, the position fit and whatnot. But what'd you make of the news of these 3 guys kind of making it known over the last handful of days?
Yeah, I mean, given everything that this coaching staff has, been put under fire or scrutiny under for, last couple of weeks, um, looking at, their tenure here so far, they they can win football games and they can recruit, man. I got to give them credit. I really have to. Um, Whether it be Rigo Bussey, coming from North Texas, who later went on to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then having several guys transfer from Power Five schools. I mean, the only other time I can remember that happening whenever I was in the program was with Norm Chow when Quentin Pedroza transferred from Utah. And then when Taz Stevenson transferred over, he had Hawaii ties, obviously, and came back to play at home after he went to Washington. But it says something about this guy's ability to recruit, because these guys see the success of our defense, and it's no doubt that these guys, are on the defensive side of the football. They want to come be a part of this lineage of defensive success this coach is able to put on the football field. So I wanted to kind of put that out there for all of the clutter. We have to hold this as well, because these guys are committing to come play for football, and it may not look like the traditional run and shoot, gunslinging Hawaii days of old, but at the same time, we're getting pretty decent recruits, especially with this Anusiem kid from Cal. I mean, he was a player in the Pac-12 and then choosing to come play at Hawaii. That's awfully significant, and it gets the guys jazzed up in the locker room just to rub elbows with somebody from maybe a higher tier than you. It pushes everybody a little bit forward, and to see how those guys go about their business.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, right, you get guys like Rico Bussey. They've sort of gotten transfers from that mid-major level, whether it's North Texas, Aaron Cephas from Rice, but they've also gotten transfers from some pretty big programs, whether it's McKinney from Oklahoma, Nelson from Georgia, now a couple of guys from Iowa State, Manusiem from Cal. Like, there's something to that, and I guess as there is a couple of other, I think one other junior college guy who had offered his verbal commitment back in October. That was Noah Kemma out of Snow College in Utah. I think he grew up, or at least went to high school in the Kansas area. And then the other verbal commits are all high school guys, and we can get to that in a second. But in your take, Hunter, is it, how much should a program rely on the transfer portal, right? I know it's kind of the reality these days, and that's, maybe this question is answered differently every single year with the way these things develop, but how should the recruiting class look, right? Majority high school kids, should it be transfers? Like what is the right balance, I guess, is in your opinion?
Oh man, it's kind of a tough question, because we don't have an awful lot of experience to kind of draw off of what is successful. Because if this is the new reality, that is an option to consider. I think in any football team, football is a sport that requires a very strong core to kind of lead your values, lead how you want your team to go about their business. That has to be put in place for guys to come in and know what they're coming and being a part of. However, if you kind of look at each team as its own thing, and we're going to bring in hired hands or hired guns in a way to reinvent the wheel every year. I mean, that's a way to go about it as well. We even saw it this year. They were struggling to find an identity on offense really until week maybe 7 or 8. And then still struggled into the last couple of weeks. So it adds a new kind of philosophy to college football that we haven't had before. So pretty interesting. However, I will add this: you need local presence on the team, and it's just because That's where our booster money comes from. That's where the entirety of our fan base comes from. There needs to be some sort of local connection out here, more so I would say than anywhere else on the mainland. You can say, oh yeah, they're from Texas, they're from Chicago, they're from Seattle. Cool. People want to know where the kids from Hawaii are out here. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so just kind of running down what 24/7 Sports has in terms of verbal commitments outside of the junior college or D1 transfer portal. You got a couple of mainland guys. You got or a few mainland guys. You got Greg Johnson, another corner out of Skyline High School in Dallas. There you got the Dallas connection again. He goes 5'11", 185. Junior Ta'ase Faumui out of Aquinas in San Bernardino, California. He's an interior offensive lineman. And then you also got Malachi Finau, who's a 3-star 24/7. He's out at St. John Bosco. So that's you get anybody from Bosco, that's usually a pretty good deal, right? If he indeed signs on the dotted line. And then the rest of the recruiting class, and again, it's not a large recruiting class at this point, and could grow, especially with the number of departures that we've seen from this group. But then you've got the trio of St. Louis grads, and those are the only 3 local boys at this point who have given their verbal commitment, right? Ethan Spencer, the center for St. Louis, he's a 2-star. Kona Moore, the safety from St. Louis, he's a 2-star as well. And then you got 3-star quarterback in AJ Bianco, who made some pretty big news back in October when he offered his verbal commitment. I don't know if any of those guys plan to sign tomorrow. We'll know, and we'll talk about it next week for sure, or whether or not they wait until February and see where the chips fall and things of that nature. But we're gonna be obviously looking at it with a pretty keen eye and wondering, okay, what can they pull in tomorrow, and what's still out there on the table, and if any of these guys, right, to offer their verbal commitment, if they don't sign, is it just a matter of timing, or is it something else? So it's gonna be really interesting to see. But go ahead, Hunter.
No, I was just gonna say, I had an interesting conversation with Dave Shoji earlier last week, just about some of the early commitment day rules with the NCAA and such. I kind of wish, and he offered this to me, and I completely agree, that they would go back to signing day being in February and not being in December for a lot of these teams that are still playing football, because you see what happens with schools like Notre Dame and LSU, and then Lincoln Riley going over to USC. It just puts a damper right at the end of your season when you're not even done. And they're trying to go over there. They're trying to hold on to their recruits. It's a whole game behind the scenes that they don't know talk about in the media. And a lot of that has to do with the timing of early signing day in December. So I would love for the NCAA to kind of get ahead of this, with the transfer portal being kind of a circus already, where these coaches aren't being put in this kind of unfortunate place to make a move at this point of the year when a lot of them still have football to be played.
I'm kind of with you, man. Like when I was in high school, which is a long time ago, that early signing day wasn't a thing, and you had to wait until February.
It was National Signing Day. There wasn't an early one. It was just National Signing Day.
Early signing day and things like that. It's to be in the middle of the season. I get it. It's technically after the season, right? But it's before the bowl season. Now more than half the teams in the country go bowling, and like you look at Hawaii, right? When Nick Rolovich left, it was in January. That's because Mike Leach left pretty late in the process too, from Wazoo to go to Mississippi State. So, all those early signee guys, right? It's like, well, what do we let them out of their letter of intent? Like some places do. I'd say it's less common than the majority of the time. So yeah, it's brutal. It's a flawed system. Like the system.
I feel for the players. I feel for the players too, on both sides. The guys that are already on the team, and then kids, literally children that are just coming out of high school that know nothing. Their parents, the majority of the time, they might have an uncle that played D3 ball or something like that thinks that he knows what's going on. It's really hard to get sound advice during this time. And in this whole Insta, Snapchat culture of need to get it out now. take your time, in my opinion. Like, take a deep breath, get through the holidays, be a kid, sleep on it. No one is holding a gun to your head to make this decision now. We've got a whole calendar year in front of us before we're ever putting a helmet on again to play an actual football game. It does not matter. That would be my recommendation. If I had a kid right here, he was my son, that's what I would tell him.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. It really is it's a cruel world out there when it comes down to these signing day things. And I think you and I both look at it kind of from a player perspective, right? Or at least a player advocacy perspective, where it's like, man, we the system could be a little more equitable for folks, who are offering up their commitment to go play at your program and abide by your rules and all of the above. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting going forward. Again, we will keep our eye on that. We will have a lot more to talk about, a lot more tangible things to talk about as to who is indeed coming to the University of Hawaii. And we got the Memphis game coming up next week, Friday as well. So a lot to talk about, but we'll wrap things up here on this episode. My little overtime tidbit. I got to work with your good buddy, Kirsten Sibley last week, Hunter, doing some state girls volleyball action for Spectrum. And my color partner was Kirsten Sibley, former Rainbow Wahine in her day. And she actually had some really nice things to say about you, Hunter. So, I know you guys are buds from your days over in Manoa. But yeah, that was cool. It was a lot of fun. She did a great job.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That helps for anyone listening out there that might think that we're still bashing the program, Jordan, that we are in fact good people outside of this podcast.
Yeah.
So,
Kirsten vouched for you. I made sure to ask her.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, man, that's awesome. She's been killing it. Stoked for her. My overtime segment right now. The Bears are not technically out of playoff contention just yet, Jordan, even with a 4-9 dismal season, to say the least. They don't, at least as of this morning on ESPN.com, have that little E.
Not eliminated yet. Not eliminated. That extra game, the extra week and the extra wild card spot helps out. And we don't host a Bears podcast, so I'll just say it. Like, hopefully there's a new coaching staff in charge next season there in Chicago.
Brutal.
So yeah, that's maybe enough Bears talk for people out there. But Hunter and I, we just commiserate together. That's just kind of how it goes. All right, we'll close it there. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. We will be back leading into the Christmas Eve Hawaii Bowl and a whole lot more to talk to. Hunter, always good fun, man. You take care. And again, this has been Hawaii Football Now, presented by Xanthison. Aloha, everybody.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.